Hello everyone, so this is going to be week 4 of me reading Wonder, and this week I'm going to split the video up into 2 smaller parts, just so I'm able to read a little more to you. I was having a little trouble making one huge video, so instead they're just going to be 2 smaller videos, so I'm able to read a little more than I have in the previous weeks. So before I start reading, let's think about what's happened last week when we were reading. Last week, Augie had just started school. He was actually walking to his first day of school, and when we left off, he was in his homeroom with Miss Petosa. So far we've met 3 students at the school. We've met Julian, Charlotte, and Jack Will. And I bet as we keep reading, we're going to get a few more students that are going to be important to the plot. So let's start. We are on page 41 where we left off, and the section is titled Around the Room. Miss Petosa told us a little bit about who she was. It was boring stuff about where she originally came from and how she always wanted to teach, and how she left her job about 6 years ago to pursue her dream and teach kids. She ended by asking if anyone had any questions. Julian raised his hand. Yes? She had to look at the list to remember his name, Julian. That's cool about how you're pursuing your dream, he said. Thank you. You're welcome, he smiled very proudly. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, Julian? Actually, here's what I want you to do. Think of 2 things you want other people to know about you. Actually, wait a minute. How many of you came from Beecher Lower School? About half the kids raised their hand. Okay, so a few of you already know each other, but the rest of you, I guess, are new to the school, right? Okay, so everybody think of 2 things that you would like the other kids to know. And if you know some kids, I'd like you to think about something that they don't already know about you. Okay? Okay. So let's start with Julian. Julian scrunched up his face and started tapping his forehead like he was thinking very hard. Okay, whenever you're ready, Miss Petosa said. Okay, so number 1 is that. Do me a favor, start with your names first, okay? Miss Petosa interrupted him. It'll help everybody remember. Oh, okay. So my name is Julian, and the number 1 thing I'd like to tell everyone is that I just got Battleground Mystic for my Wii, and it's totally awesome. And the number 2 is that we got a ping pong table over this summer. Very nice. I love ping pong, said Miss Petosa. Does anyone have any questions for Julian? Is Battleground Mystic a multiplayer or 1 player? Said some kid named Miles. Not those questions, you guys, said Miss Petosa. Okay, so how about you? She pointed to Charlotte, probably because her desk was closer to the front. Oh, sure. Charlotte did not even hesitate for a second, like she knew exactly what she wanted to say. My name is Charlotte. I have 2 sisters, and we just got a new puppy named Suki in July. We got her from the animal shelter, and she is so cute. That's great, Charlotte. Thank you, said Miss Petosa. Okay, so who's next? Lamb to Slaughter. Ooh, I hear that title, and I remember that little phrase actually came up earlier. If we remember when Mr. Pullman said that to Augie, he kind of referred to him as a lamb to slaughter when they were sending him to school. So I'm interested to see how that'll connect. Like a lamb to the slaughter. Something you say about someone who goes somewhere calmly, not knowing that something unpleasant is going to happen to them. I googled it last night. That's what I was thinking when Miss Petosa called my name, and suddenly it was my turn to talk. My name is August, I said, and yeah, I kind of mumbled it. What? Said someone. Can you speak up, honey? Said Miss Petosa. My name is August, I said louder, forcing myself to look up. I, have a sister named Via and a dog named Daisy, and that's it. Wonderful, said Miss Petosa. Does anyone have any questions for August? No one said anything. Okay, you're next, said Miss Petosa to Jack. Wait, I have a question for August, said Julian, raising his hand. Why do you have that tiny braid in the back of your hair? Is that like a Padawan thing? Yeah, I nodded. What's a Padawan thing? Said Miss Petosa, smiling at me. It's from Star Wars, answered Julian. A Padawan is a Jedi apprentice. Oh, interesting, answered Miss Petosa, looking at me. So, are you into Star Wars, August? I guess. I nodded, not looking up because I really just wanted to slide under my desk. "Who's your favorite character?" asked Julian. I started thinking maybe he wasn't so bad. Jango Fett. "What about Darth Sidious?" he asked. "Do you like him?" "Okay, guys, you can talk about Star Wars stuff at recess," said Miss Petosa cheerfully, "but let's keep going. We haven't heard from you yet," she said to Jack. Now it was Jack's turn to talk, but I admit I didn't hear a word he said. Maybe no one got the Darth Sidious thing, and maybe Julian didn't mean anything at all, but in Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of Sith, Darth Sidious's face gets burned by Sith lightning and becomes totally deformed. His skin gets all shriveled up and his whole face kind of melts. I peeked at Julian and he was looking at me. Yeah, he knew exactly what he was saying. Choose kind. There was a lot of shuffling around when the bell rang, and everybody got up to leave. I checked my schedule. It said my next class was English, room 321. I didn't stop to see if anyone else from homeroom was going my way. I just zoomed out of the class, down the hallway, and sat down as far away from the front as possible. The teacher, a really tall man with a yellow beard, was writing on the chalkboard. Kids came in laughing and talking in little groups, but I didn't look up. Basically, the same thing that happened in homeroom happened again. No one sat next to me, except for Jack, who was joking around with some other kids who weren't in our homeroom. I could tell Jack was the kind of kid that other kids liked. He had a lot of friends. He made people laugh. When the second bell rang, everyone got quiet and the teacher turned around and faced us. His name was Mr. Brown. He started talking about what we would be doing this semester. At a certain point, somewhere between A Wrinkle in Time and Shaun of the Sea, he noticed me, but he kept on talking. I was mostly doodling on my notebook while he was talking, but every once in a while, I would sneak a look at the other students in the class. Charlotte was in my class. So were Julian and Henry. Miles wasn't. Mr. Brown had written on the chalkboard in big block letters, P-R-E-C-E-P-T, exclamation point. Precept. Okay, everybody write this down at the very top of the first page in your English notebook. As we did what he told us to do, he said, "Okay, so who can tell me what a precept is? Does anyone know?" No one raised their hand. Mr. Brown smiled, nodded, and turned around to write on the chalkboard again. Precepts equal rules about really important things. Like a motto? Someone called out. Like a motto, said Mr. Brown, nodding as he continued to write on the chalkboard. Like a famous quote, like a line on a fortune cookie, any kind of saying or ground rule that can motivate you. Basically, a precept is anything that helps guide us when we're making decisions about very important things. He wrote all that on the chalkboard and then turned around and faced us. "So, what are some really important things?" he asked us. A few kids raised their hand as he pointed to them. They gave their answers, which he wrote on the chalkboard in really, really sloppy handwriting. Rules, school, homework. "What else?" he said as he wrote, not even turning around. "Just call some things out." He wrote everything down that everyone called out. Family, parents, pets. One girl called out, "The environment." The environment. He wrote on the chalkboard and added, "Our world." "Sharks, because they eat dead things in the ocean," said one boy, some kid named Reed, and Mr. Brown wrote down, "Sharks." "Bees, seatbelts, recycling, friends." "Okay," said Mr. Brown, writing all these things down. He turned around when he finished writing, facing us again. But no one named the most important thing of all. We all looked at him, out of ideas. "God?" said one kid. And I could tell that even though Mr. Brown wrote down God, that was not the answer he was looking for. Without saying anything else, he wrote down who we are. "Who we are," he said, underlining each word as he said it. "Who we are. Us, right? What kind of people we are. What kind of person are you? What kind of person do you want to be? Isn't that the most important thing of all? Isn't that the question we should be asking ourselves all the time? What kind of person am I? Did anyone happen to notice the plaque next to the door of this school? Has anyone read it? Anyone at all?" He looked around, but no one answered. "It says, 'Know thyself.'" He smiled and nodded. "And learning who you are is what we are going to do here." I thought we were here to learn English, Jack cracked up, which made everyone laugh. Oh yeah, and that too, answered Mr. Brown, which I thought was cool of him. He turned around and wrote in huge block letters that spread all the way across the chalkboard, Mr. Brown's September Precept. When given the choice between being right or being kind, choose kind. Okay, so everybody, he said, facing us again, I want you to start a brand new section in your notebook called Mr. Brown's Precepts. He kept talking as we did what he was telling us to do. Put today's date at the top of the first page. And from now on, at the beginning of every month, I'm going to write down a new Mr. Brown precept on the chalkboard, and you're going to write it down in your notebook. Then we're going to discuss that precept and what it means. And at the end of the month, you're going to write an essay about it, about what it means to you. So at the end of the year, you will have your own list of precepts to take away with you. Over the summer, I asked all my students to come up with their very own personal precept, write it on a postcard, and mail it to me from wherever you go on summer vacation. People really do that? Said one girl whose name I didn't know. Oh yeah, he answered, people do that. I've had students send me precepts years after they graduated from the school, actually. It's pretty amazing. He paused to stroke his beard. But anyway, next summer seems like a long way off. I know, he joked, which made us all laugh. So everybody relax a bit while I take attendance, and then when we're finished with this, I'll start telling you about all the fun stuff we're going to be doing this year in English. He pointed to Jack when he said this, which was also funny, so we all laughed at that. As I wrote down Mr. Brown's September precept, I suddenly realized I was going to like school, no matter what. Lunch. Via had warned me about lunch in middle school, so I guess I should have known it would have been hard. I just hadn't expected it to be this hard. Basically, all the kids from the 5th grade classes poured into the cafeteria at the same time, talking loudly and bumping into one another while they ran to different tables. One of the lunchroom teachers said something about no saving seats allowed, but I didn't know what she meant by that, and maybe no one else did either, because just about everyone was saving seats for their friends. I tried to sit down at one table, but the kid in the chair said, "Oh, sorry, someone is sitting here." So I moved on to an empty table and just waited for everyone to finish stampeding the lunchroom and the teacher to tell us what to do next. As she started telling us the cafeteria rules, I looked around to see where Jack Will was sitting, but I didn't see him on my side of the room. Kids were still coming in as the teachers started calling the first tables to get their trays and stand in the line at the counter. Julian, Henry, and Miles were sitting at the table towards the back of the room. Mom had packed me a cheese sandwich, graham crackers, and a juice box, so I didn't need to stand in line when my table was called. Instead, I just concentrated on opening my backpack, pulling out my lunchbox, and slowly opening the aluminum foil wrapping of my sandwich. I could tell I was being stared at without even looking up. I knew that people were nudging each other, watching me out of the corner of their eyes. I thought I was used to those kind of stares by now, but I guess I wasn't. There was one table of girls that I knew were whispering about me because they were talking behind their hands. Their eyes and whispers kept bouncing over to me. I hate the way I eat. I know how weird it looks. I had surgery to fix my cleft palate when I was a baby, and then a second cleft surgery when I was 4. But I still have a hole in the roof of my mouth. And even though I had jaw alignment surgery a few years ago, I have to chew food in the front of my mouth. I didn't even realize how this looked until I was at a birthday party once, and one of the kids told the mom of the birthday boy he didn't want to sit next to me because I was too messy with all the foods and crumbs were shooting out of my mouth. I know the kid wasn't trying to be mean, but he got in big trouble later, and his mom called my mom to apologize that night. When I got home from the party, I went to the bathroom mirror and started eating a saltine cracker to see what it looked like when I was chewing. The kid was right. I eat like a tortoise, if you've ever seen a tortoise eating. Like some kind of prehistoric swamp thing. The summer table. "Hey, is the seat taken?" I looked up, and a girl I'd never seen before was standing across from my table with a lunch tray full of food. She had long, wavy brown hair and wore a brown t-shirt with a purple peace sign on it. No, I said. She put her lunch tray on the table, plopped her backpack on the floor, and sat down across from me. She started to eat the mac and cheese on her plate. Ugh, she said after swallowing the first bite. I should have brought a sandwich like you did. Yeah, I said, nodding. My name is Summer, by the way. What's yours? August. Cool, she said. Summer! Another girl came over to the table, carrying a tray. Why are you sitting here? Come back to our table. It's too crowded, Summer answered her. Come sit over here, there's more room. The other girl looked confused for a second. I realized she had just been one of the girls I had caught looking at me a few minutes earlier, hand cupped over her mouth, whispering. I guess Summer had been one of those girls at the table too. Never mind, the girl said, leaving. Summer looked at me, shrugged, and smiled, and took another bite of her mac and cheese. Hey, our names kind of match, she said as she chewed. I guess I couldn't tell what she meant. Summer, August, she said, smiling with her eyes wide as she waited for me to get it. Oh yeah, I said after a second. We can make this the summer-only lunch table, she said. Only kids with summer names can sit here. Let's see if there's anyone here named June or July. There's a Maya, I said. Technically, May is spring, Summer answered. But if she wanted to sit here, we could make an exception. She said it as if she had already had this whole thing thought out. There's Julian, and that's like the name Julia, which comes from the month July. I didn't say anything. There's a kid named Reed in my English class. Yeah, I know Reed, but how is Reed a summer name? She asked. I don't know, I shrugged. I just pictured like reed of grass being a summer thing. Yeah, okay, she nodded, pulling out her notebook. And Miss Petosa could sit here too. That's kind of like the word petal, which I think of summer. I have her for homeroom. I said, I have her for math, she answered, making a face. She started writing the list of names on the second to last page of her notebook. So who else? She said. By the end of lunch, we had come up with a whole list of names and teachers who could sit at our table if they wanted. Most of the names weren't actually summer names, but they were the names that had some kind of connection to summer. I even found a way of making Jack Will's name work by pointing out that his name could be turned into a sentence about summer, like Jack will go to the beach, which Summer agreed would work fine. But if someone doesn't have a summer name and wants to sit with us, she said very seriously, we'll let them if they're nice, okay? Okay. I nodded, even if it's a winter name. Cool beans, she answered, giving me a thumbs up. Summer looked like her name. She had tan skin and her eyes were green like a leaf. 1 to 10. Mom always had a habit of asking me how something felt on a scale of 1 to 10. It started after I had my jaw surgery, when I couldn't talk because my mouth was wired shut. They had taken a piece of bone from my hip to insert it into my chin to make it so I looked more normal. I was hurting in a lot of different places. Mom would point out to one of my bandages, and I would hold up my fingers to show her how much it was hurting. 1 meant a little bit. 10 meant so much. Then she would tell the doctor when he made his rounds what needed adjusting or things like that. Mom got very good at reading my mind sometimes. After that, we got into the habit of doing the 1 to 10 scale thing for anything that hurt. Like, even if I just had some plain old sore throat, she'd ask 1 to 10, and I'd say 3, or whatever it was. When school was over, I went outside to meet Mom, who was waiting at the front entrance like all the other parents or babysitters. The first thing she said after hugging me, so how was it? 1 to 10. 5, I said. I shrugged, which I could tell totally surprised her. Wow, she said quietly, that's even better than I hoped for. Are we picking up Via? Miranda's mom is picking her up today. Do you want me to carry your backpack, sweetness? We started walking through the crowd of kids and parents, most of whom were noticing me, secretly pointing to each other. I'm fine, I said. It looks heavy, Augie. Mom, I said, pulling my backpack away from her. I walked in the front of her through the crowd. See you tomorrow, August. It was Summer. She was walking the opposite direction. Bye, Summer, I said, waving at her. As soon as we crossed the street and were away from the crowd, Mom said, Who was that, Augie? Summer. Is she in your class? I have lots of classes. Is she in any of your classes? Mom said. I don't know. Mom waited for me to say something else, but I didn't feel like talking. So it went okay? Said Mom. I could tell she had a million questions she wanted to ask me. Everyone was nice? Did you like your teachers? Yeah. So how about those kids you met last week? Were they nice? Fine. Jack hung out with me a lot. Oh, that's so great, sweetie. What about that boy, Julian? I thought about the Darth Sidious comment. By now, it felt like it had happened hundreds of years ago. He was okay, I said. And that blonde girl, what was her name? Charlotte. Mom, I already said everyone was nice. Okay, Mom answered. I honestly don't know why I was kind of mad at my mom, but I was. We crossed Amherst Avenue, and she didn't say anything until we turned onto our block. So, Mom said, how did you meet Summer if she wasn't in any of your classes? We sat together at lunch, I said. I had started kicking a rock between my feet like it was a soccer ball, chasing it back and forth across the sidewalk. She seemed very nice. She is. She's very pretty too, Mom said. Yeah, I know, I answered. We're kind of like Beauty and the Beast. I didn't wait to see Mom's reaction. I just started running down the sidewalk after the rock, which I had kicked as hard as I could in front of me. So I'm going to stop here for part 1, but make sure quickly head over to part 2, and I'm going to keep reading a little more, okay?